We're going to discuss the various different types of connectors that will be inserted into the holes in the data logger enclosure, watt node enclosure, and relay enclosure. So what we have are 7 different types of connectors. These 3 here are the ones that are more than one piece, okay? And then we have a couple others which provide some level of, these are snap-in, and they provide some degree of strain relief. And then we have this one here, which is called a grommet, which is really just a insulated, it creates insulation around the hole so that the wire doesn't get frayed. And then we have a plug, okay? So let's start with the simplest one, which is the plug. So any unused holes, you can just simply insert this, push it in, and it's nice and secure, and it kind of protects that hole. All right, that one is pretty obvious. The grommet here, this is same thing, it's just a snap in, all right? So it's a little looser than the plug, but it does stay in there pretty well. And if you're going to, if you, let's say that you've run out of holes and you need to insert more cables than you have holes, or if there's a, let's say a certain type of, let's say you have a cable that has a connector on the end and it doesn't, the connector is too large to fit through any of these other strain relief devices. One option would be, of course, to wait until the cable is inserted before you put before you install the connector on the other end. But if the connector is already installed, for example, a good example would be the Ethernet cable. It already has the plug on the end. So you can use this grommet and you can just insert the cable in whatever connector just that way. And you can also insert multiple cables if you need to. All right. And like I said before, it insulates this hole so that if you rub this against this edge enough, you're going to cut the, you can already see it does a little damage to the cable jacket. So this protects the cables from the sharp edges. All right, now the third type that we have here is this one, and it's very similar to the grommet I just showed you, except it provides some degree of strain relief, meaning that if I insert this cable, it does sort of keep it in place, but it is very easy to pull it out. But it keeps it centered, and you are able to, I think, you are able to insert more than one cable, but it's really meant for just one cable. All right, and then next we have something somewhat similar, but this is really meant for larger wire size power cables, okay? You can see that when I put this in, it doesn't actually snap in tightly unless I have a cable inside of it. So you can see I can pull it right out here. But if I take a power cable, so this is a type of power cable common in the US. It's got 3 conductors on the inside of it. If I insert that into this connector here, it's sort of a one-way connector, so it keeps it from pulling out. I'm actually pulling pretty hard. So, and you can see that the connector is actually pretty secure now, okay, so it's not going anywhere. This is what you should use in the relay enclosures when you have your power cables coming from the circuit breakers entering the relay enclosures. You should use this kind of connector. All right, so I'm actually going to pull it all the way through. Because it's one way, it's hard to pull it back out. So I'm going to pull it through from the inside. And now it actually will fall right out. So the last 3 we have here are the true strain relief connectors. All right, so let me start with the 2 different types that you already have. Excuse me. That you already have in the phase 1 systems. Now these look identical, and they actually are identical from the outside. But if we open them up, okay, let's see, we've got that one and then this other one. these are actually different sizes. Let me try to show you this. So you can see the one on the left can accommodate a bigger cable than the one on the right. But other than that, these things are the same size, and so is the nut here on the end. They're no different, as well as the piece here with two threaded ends on it. Okay, so these are the same. The only difference is this rubber piece and then this yellow plastic piece, which is actually what grips down on the cable. All right, so to sort of reinstall one of these, or to get all the pieces back together, you take the you'll see that the two different threaded ends are a little bit different. So the one that has sort of the more conical profile, you insert the rubber piece in there, and then just rest the yellow plastic piece on top, and then just screw on the coiled end here. And then on the inside of the cable, or inside of the enclosure, that's where you secure it by tightening the nut onto the threaded piece. Okay, so now it's nice and secure because I have that nut threaded down. Now the other one is really exactly the same thing, except it accommodates a smaller cable. So the one for the larger cable, I think the only ones you're going to need, the only cables that you're going to use that for, are the 5 conductor cables that are currently installed in your systems. And those are the ones that are used for the temperature and relative humidity sensors. All right, so this right here, alpha wire, part number 1295C, 5 conductor 22 American wire gauge, shielded. All right, so this is a shielded 5 conductor 22 gauge cable. And these are too large to fit in this smaller cable gland here. So you'll notice in the current system, if you take these apart, I'm using the larger one for these 5 conductor cables. All right, and let me just show you how you would actually connect a wire through one of these. So the easiest thing is probably to if you take your cable end and put this piece over the end, and then you can put your yellow piece right there, and if the rubber piece is already connected to the black double threaded piece, then you can sort of pre-assemble it like that, and you can tighten it loosely. And now you can see, because it's still loose, the cable can still move back and forth. So once you have all that together, you can insert it in the hole and run this nut around the cable and tighten it to the threaded end. And then once you have that nice and tight, so you'll see now if we take this off, it all sort of is in place. But then to tighten it, you just screw it on there. All right. So it provides strain relief. So this cable, you have to pull really hard to get this cable to move. And it also provides strain relief in this direction too, so that it's not going to, it creates a more gentle bend here. All right. And then finally, this type of cable gland or strain relief connector is relatively similar. It looks different, but it kind of works the same way. So there's a nut on the end, and then there's the middle piece, and then the rubber part, which actually tightens. You can see what happens here is that this piece, when you tighten it down, it actually squishes this rubber piece onto the cable. So you can see this right here. So you can see the hole getting smaller. That's what's actually clamping down on the cable and providing the strain relief. All right. So here it's sort of the same thing as what I just showed you. Let's say we have a pretty large cable. All right. And put this over the end. Insert that through there. Screw it on loosely. And then put it in the hole and put the nut over the end of the cable on the inside. And then tighten everything. And again, it provides a lot of strain relief. Right. So if you, I'm not going to tell you exactly what to use for each cable. You can kind of figure it out yourself. I give you a good supply of different connectors, which should be all that you need. And again, I mean, technically, I mean, you could put a cable right through here, and as long as it's not going to move, and as long as nobody's going to pull on this, because if you pull on this and it's connected to terminals on the inside of the enclosure, onto some device on the inside of the enclosure, you could do a lot of damage to these terminals. So that's why I've tried to use these strain relief connectors everywhere I could in the systems, and I'd encourage you to do the same. But you know, technically speaking, if there's no risk of anybody pulling on these or moving them, they can just sit in the open hole like that. But that's not the safest way to do it. All right, so that's the summary of the different options for the connectors.